So let's move on to our next session. I would like to introduce the infamous Val Wright, who's going to talk to us about real growth done right. Turn it over to you, Val. Have fun.
So I have two cameras here because I have 10 minutes and I'm going to stick to time. So thanks very much. It's been a delight listening to all of your stories. I'm a global leadership and innovation expert. Spent the first 20 years inside companies like Xbox and Amazon and BMW, helping them dramatically create growth. And now I have my own innovation consultancy and I've written 2 books, Rapid Growth Done Right and Thoughtfully Ruthless. So I want to take you back to when Microsoft wrote off $1 billion. $1 billion write-off because of hardware failure. So there was hardware failure. I'm sorry if you were one of the people who had an Xbox at the time. I was on the leadership team, and we got to the point where Steve Ballmer, who was CEO at the time, nearly closed down the business and said, this division isn't profitable, we have no hope. You may remember the Wii, when Nintendo first launched the Wii, and you could play tennis like this with a plastic stick, with a tube attached to your TV. Well, all the Xbox leadership team thought that was a silly idea and it would never take off because their core market was people who like to shoot and race things on their Xbox. But the we ended up taking off and we had $1 billion write-off, and we had to rapidly innovate and invent something completely new. And we had to go into new markets. And what I learned, I was helping them create the Innovation Lab before Innovation Labs even had a name then. And we came up with a way of creating a Shark Tank type experience where the Kinect camera came from. And the Kinect camera overtook the Wii, and you could talk and you could use your hands and find a new way to interact. And Xbox went from being a shooting and racing game to being the center of the living room of where you could listen to music, watch movies, and it transformed the business, and luckily we didn't get shut down. So the reason I tell that story is because in times of crisis, innovation occurs. And some of the themes I've heard today, if you could have seen me, I'd have been nodding or shouting at my camera while I had my daughter asking me math questions, and I was doing a terrible job of, the other side trying to answer math questions at the same time. And I was nodding and cheering along with a lot of what was being said, because what I find the most successful companies are doing right now during times of crisis are those who are able to look at their whole business and say, how can we do things differently? So I have, this is a bit of a show and tell going on here. So I have this innovation spiral that kind of talks about the different components of what makes up an innovative company. And I can send you that assessment, and it's a very simple assessment where you can ask questions that are yes or no of, do you have the voice of youth in your company? Do you learn from your failures? How do you evaluate products and services? So there's a fast assessment that you can do that will help you see how innovative is your company right now. And after having sat on, how are we on hour 4 of video and music and entertaining panelists, you may be at the point of information overload and information fatigue. And there is a difference between what a successful executive will do right now and what many other people will do. And so what you have to do, it's this concept that I call thoughtfully ruthless, is there's a misconception about leadership that you either need to be thoughtful and well-liked and everyone loves you and follows you, or you have to be ruthless, Game of Thrones style with a sledgehammer, whacking cost cuts and, being the ogre. And neither is true. What you have to do is figure out how to be thoughtful in a ruthless way with where you spend your time, your energy, and your resources, which is why these clocks on your online meetings will help you. It's why when you have an activity to do, a simple sand timer, many activities only take like 5 minutes, but we easily get distracted with the buzzes and the clicks and the notifications that are coming through. Many of you are probably multitasking right now, trying to keep up with your email or keep on top of what's happening on Twitter. Everybody is parallel processing. But if you can find ways of saying, okay, this really is only going to take me 5 minutes. I'm going to set this, I'm going to go offline, I'm going to be very focused. It will make the difference and it will help set you apart. The other part of being thoughtfully ruthless is thinking about your energy levels. And I'm looking over there because I've got 3 battery packs lined up on charge, making sure that my phones and my iPads are fully charged. We spend so long making sure that, you know, our devices have all the juice we need. And I ask you now, you know, depending where you are in the world, at the end of your day or at the start of your day, where is your battery level right now? Are you at 100% fully charged on green? Or are you 50%? Or are you at 20%? And then think about what your phone or your devices do when you're in that low battery mode. It shuts off all of the non-core activities, and it tries and preserves that last element of juice left. And if you were to think about your own energy levels, you know, how do you preserve that level of final piece of juice when you're exhausted? And, you know, what I'm hearing a lot from executives right now as they're working from home, dealing with aging parents or pets or extra demands of trying to be a terrible substitute teacher like me, is there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of demands, but what you have to do is practice self-care and keep your own battery levels charged. And then the final part of being thoughtfully ruthless on that time, energy, and resources is the resources part, is thinking about how do you make the most of the resources available to you. And one of the things that I encourage company leaders to do right now is just imagine if you were rebuilding your company from scratch today. What if you had a blank sheet of paper and you were trying to delight your customers? And how would you rebuild your company? How would you go to market? What value would you provide your customers? And some people are doing a reset while we go through this global pandemic. Some people have already relaunched, depending on which markets you're in and which countries in the world you support. But what you have to think about is, how do you reevaluate your company and ask yourself those really tough questions? Because there's this closing window of opportunity for you to reset your business. There is so much readiness right now, whether it's renegotiating a corporate real estate, whether it's reevaluating technology. You know, somebody was saying earlier about how the speed of e-commerce has, you know, created more growth in the last 3 months than the previous 15 years. You know, what I'm seeing is technology leaders are either heroes or villains right now. And so thinking about, how are you leading your resources? You know, when you have creative leaders, technology leaders, and business teams working together, where is it lost in translation? Where are you seeing that it's like you've landed in France and someone's trying to talk Japanese and there's crossed wires? Or do you have that symbiotic relationship between all of your different resources? And then speed is the final factor. I like to talk about the 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock decision. If you were to make a decision at 10 a.m., implement it by 2 p.m. And then some people will like viscerally cringe when I suggest that and say that's impossible. It's not impossible. What you have to do is challenge how decisions are made in your company and say, how do we speed that up? And how do we do that by serving our customers as best as we possibly can? What I want to also mention to you is there's many different ways in which you can communicate. And so one of my favorite inspirations is the street artist Banksy. He's a British graffiti artist who creates these incredible displays. And this one is titled, "My Wife Hates It When I Work From Home and the Rats Have Taken Over the Bathroom." Some of you might be able to relate to that. If you follow Banksy on Instagram, he has lots of incredible pieces of art. And I encourage you to think about, how are you using art and music to tell your story with your teams or with your customers? Because people are getting bored of endless Zoom meetings. The other piece of advice I give you is, not everything needs to take 60 minutes. 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 45-minute meetings gives people time to readjust and time to actually do some work. So think about how people are using their time within your teams. And then my final piece of advice for you is, there are 3 ways you're going to improve the probability you do anything having heard of all this brilliant advice. The first is, if you write something down, research shows the probability of you doing it increases. The second way is, if you then tell someone you're going to do something, it further increases the probability that you will actually do it. So as you look at all your notes that you've got from this call, think about that. And then the final way that you improve the probability you actually do something is you take action within 24 hours. So in other words, if by 2:30 tomorrow, you have not done what you said you were going to do, it's probably going to end up on a to-do list, and it will be like all the other things on your to-do list, and you maybe will get round to it soon. And so think about what can you immediately do in the next 24 hours. And to help with that, I am giving you 7 days of access to me. If any of those tools that I've mentioned, or if you've seen any of my work, interest you, if you go to the website textvalnow.com, I am giving you 7 days of Ask Val Anything, free advice via text. And if you haven't seen a service like this and you're in marketing, it's like the MailChimp for text messages. It's called Superphone. It's a really cool technology. And so that's something else I give to you as my final gift to you. And I hand you back, and my beeper didn't go off. Thank you very much.